My mother's family lived on a large farm near the North Union Shaker Village, and there they purchased baskets and brooms and grain measures and skeins of yarn to knit the family's stockings, mufflers, and shawls. My grandfather had his grain converted into meal and flour at the Shaker's grist mill, and he had his timber cut into lumber at the sawmill. But it was those Shaker stories passed to me from my mother through her friendship with Eldris Abigail that awakened in me a lifelong interest in the lives of these gentle folk.
Carolyn Piercy, during a conversation with her neighbors, realized how little was retained of the Shakers' heritage in mid-20th century Shaker Heights, Ohio. From her ongoing efforts to learn and pass along the local history, the seeds of the Shaker Historical Society were sown. Among others joining in these efforts was John Schott, a local minister and graduate student of history who, like Piercy, utilized the resources of the Western Reserve Historical Society. They both recognized the need to preserve and to share the legacy of a sect which practiced equality of rights and charity toward all.
Long before women's rights became a social and a political issue, the Shakers had granted equal rights to women and practiced true charity in their willingness to welcome all who showed up to be fed and housed.
Piercy so believed in the importance of preservation work that she stored local artifacts in her basement as she gathered them. Her efforts were soon to find a broadening interest linked to a founding event. Commemorating the 125th anniversary of the North Union Shaker Colony served as the catalyst for the establishment of the Shaker Historical Society. This corporation was formed October 21, 1947, exclusively for the charitable purposes of discovering, collecting, preserving, and extending knowledge concerning whatever related to the life, history, traditions, and heritage of the Shakers and of Shaker Heights. It was 1808 when Daniel and Margaret Warren traveled from Ackworth, New Hampshire, to build their log home here in the wilderness known as the Connecticut Western Reserve.
Mrs. Warren and our 3-week-old babe rode, while the boy of 2 years I carried. Neighbor Prentice with his ox team hauled our few household things. We went into the deep woods and set to work to equip the cabin.
The cost of pioneering a new life was high. In 1811, the Warrens' daughter, Lovisa, who was the babe in arms, died at age 2 and became the first white settler buried in what is now known as the Warrensville West Cemetery.
Those early days were so lonely. Daniel was often away at his work, and my infants and I were then alone to face the bears and wolves that continued to claim this land. How I welcomed friends from Newburgh, Ohio, whenever we had occasion for a gathering, even if those occasions were as filled with sadness as they were with joy.
This cemetery holds the remains of many of the settlers who sought a better life here than in their previous homes, many from the Isle of Man. The struggle for freedom exercised through the American War of Independence and Development of the Republic extended throughout the western frontier. Jacob Russell, honored here for his Revolutionary War efforts, sought an expanded life from Windsor Locks, Connecticut for himself, his wife Esther, and their 11 children. In 1811, he purchased 475 acres along Doan Brook in Warrensville Township of the Connecticut Western Reserve. As dominance for control of the waters of Lake Erie raged in the War of 1812 between British, American, and Native inhabitants, the Russell family influence in northern Ohio began.
The Russell family formed an odd procession as they journeyed westward. We embarked at Sackett Harbor, New York on August 1, 1813, and made the journey by flatboat. This was very difficult on account of the many portages and getting around Niagara Falls. There being no harbor in Cleveland in those days, we finally effected a landing by rowboat. Slowed by storms and the perils of war, the cabin was not completed until late fall. Food was scarce and illness affected everyone.
With 3 generations of Russells occupying a cluster of log cabins, a settlement in the frontier was claimed. The patriarch, Jacob Russell, died in 1821, and his son, Ralph, assumed the leadership of the small community. In 1822, Ralph brought the spark of Shaker religious fervor to his family after his visit to Union Village, Ohio, in the Miami Valley. The revivalism that had spread across Kentucky and southern Ohio captured Russell's imagination.
Instead of joining the Union Village settlement, the elders convinced me to return home here to Warrensville Township to start a new Shaker village. I ask you to donate your land and belongings to this new religion.
Russell and his family formed the nucleus of the North Union Shaker colony. In 1826, the Mother Church, or head of influence at Mount Lebanon, New York, asserted its authority over the Western Enclave by sending elders to formalize the Shaker Church at North Union.
The time has come when natural families must relinquish all natural ties. We mourn. Every family apart, husbands and wives apart, children torn from their mothers. The celibate order is established in North Union.
The families could no longer continue dwelling in separate log cabins in their chosen living arrangements, but would have to build a common dwelling house and begin true communal living. Based upon the teachings of Anne Lee Stanley, Mother Ann, the United Society of Believers held God to be a dual personality, a balance of masculine and feminine attributes. Seeking a heavenly perfection here on earth, the Shakers practiced celibacy and confession of sins, as well as equality of labor and reward in their communal habitat. The decision to sign the covenant of membership was left to each individual. In 1828, 80 signed the rolls at North Union, but ironically, Ralph Russell, Laura, and their 3 children declined to sign and chose to move to what is now Solon. The North Union colony was organized as 3 families: the Center family, located at the corner of Lee Road and Shaker Boulevard, the East family on Fontenay, and the Mill family below the dam at Lower Shaker Lake. This dam on Doane Brook provided water power for the sawmill and the stone grist mill. Elder James Prescott also helped record how the Shaker produce, baskets, canned goods and dairy products, beef and Bakewell sheep were highly prized in the northern Ohio region. Their packaged seeds and manufactured goods supplied a growing market, while their religious practices flourished in the meeting house on Lee Road.
The interior, in its utter simplicity, breathes quiet and calm. The place is flooded with light.
Come life, Shaker life, come life eternal, shake, shake out of me all that is carnal. Come life, for the Shakers, religious inspiration was considered a sign from the Holy Ghost. Manifestations could include shaking fits, visions and prophecies, gift drawings, songs, and dances.
Shaker hymns are a gift that we freely share. The songs by themselves speak of the many aspects of our life.
I'll show Michael twice how he behaved. According to Piercy's recollection, Shaker spiritualism died a natural death about 1852 after 2 decades of growth. They lost their zeal and fervor, and their symbolic fountains and rivers of living waters dried up. Without their collective enthusiasm, the materialistic temptations of the world were more difficult to resist, especially for the younger members.
A hackman met us at the railway depot in Cleveland. We had a comfortable conveyance and an interesting ride out Euclid Avenue, which Barnard Taylor in his travels around the world says is not exceeded except in 2 cities for its wealth and grandeur and beauty. After riding 8 miles, we reached the boundaries of North Union. We found the society very small in number, not 30 in all, and among these 4 sisters who are in their 80s. After supper, we held a consultation meeting, for a conclusion had to be reached if the community was to continue on in this place, for the membership has so dwindled in number, and many among them are so aged that they are no longer able to care for the place properly. Our advice is to have all surplus sold, for otherwise moths will in time destroy them. Our ministry are leaving at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Farewell, North Union.
A syndicate of Southern investors purchased the lands from the trustees of the United Society for $316,000. The following year, the title was transferred to land speculators from Buffalo, who named their venture the Shaker Heights Land Company. Influenced by the Garden City movement espoused by British socialist Ebenezer Howard, the FAP's engineering company drafted a plan for the syndicate that called for both aesthetic and environmental considerations in the community's development. The European influence in urban planning also emphasized rational order and strong geometric configurations in the design, with the great cities of Europe providing the models. Compliance with stated principles was reinforced by local managing boards endowed with the authority to exercise control in development decisions. Home sites were offered for sale by 1904, but the public was slow to respond. The lengthy commute to downtown Cleveland was viewed as an obstacle to developers and potential residents. Orris Paxton and Mantis James Van Swearingen envisioned opportunity where others saw impediments, and in 1905 began the acquisition and development of Shaker Heights Village. By 1906, the Van Sweringens determined that the suburb's success would be linked to the building of public transportation to Cleveland.
The symbol of the transformation of Cleveland from an overgrown village to a modern metropolis is the Terminal Tower.
The Vans' dream envisioned a 21-minute commute from Shaker Heights to the city and their newly devised symbol of prosperity and commerce, the Terminal Tower Complex. But the obstacle to their plan lay in a 2-mile stretch of access owned by the Nickel Plate Railroad. The brothers purchased the entire railroad in order to acquire complete right-of-way. This initial venture in railroad speculation would escalate as the Vans continued to develop their expansive empire. Contrasted with the risk and uncertainty of the business world and the tumult of city life was the image of security offered in the planned residential retreat of an affluent suburb. The prosperity enjoyed by many Americans in the 1920s and heralded in the Plain Dealer was reflected in the growing community of Shaker Heights. Advertised as the peaceful Shaker Village, the idyllic suburb held the past to be the mirror of the future. Utilizing the heritage of the Shakers' Valley of God's Pleasure in their marketing strategies, the Van Sweringens accentuated the Shakers' reverence and stewardship of the land in their promotion of the new utopia.
Every house here will be of correct and pleasing architecture, individual, yet in harmony with those around it, each adding to the charm and value of the community.
Deed restrictions not only applied to architectural choices and home sites, but also excluded groups of people by race or religious practice. Some of these restrictions still existed until the late 1950s. For those living in Shaker Heights, the amenities included public and private schools, 2 country clubs, a riding academy, and several churches.
As residents, you will play more, enjoy your gardens, relax, and live in sunshine and clean, fresh air.
But the affluence of the good life took a severe turn in 1929. When the stock market crashed, the Van Sweringen financial empire collapsed. The lasting legacy of their vision is viewed throughout the architectural center of Cleveland, the Terminal Tower Complex, as well as in the community of Shaker Heights, chartered as a city in 1931. A sense of beauty permeates the planned community from the architectural to the natural, from the functional to the ornate. Visually linking the present to the past, residents and visitors to the community are never far from a strong historical presence. To understand the impact of the historical visionaries who have shaped the physical structures of Shaker Heights, education holds the key. In sparking the interest of citizens in the recorded events from the past, an ideal route is found to the discovery of local history. Beyond their personal use of the parks, buildings, places of worship, and institutions, residents, school children, and visitors are introduced to the vitality of social experimentation in America's past. Religious and personal tolerance becomes a lesson from history for the future, a gift of this unique community.
Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Ye followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. Oh, sisters, ain't you happy? Oh, sisters, ain't you happy? Oh, sisters, ain't you happy? Ye followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. I'm glad I am a shaker, I'm glad I am a shaker, I'm glad I am a shaker, ye followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. I'll cross my ugly nature, I'll cross my ugly nature, I'll cross my ugly nature, ye followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. I mean to be obedient, I mean to be obedient, I mean to be obedient, ye followers of the Lamb. Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Oh, brethren, ain't you happy? Ye followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb. Sing on, dance on, followers of Emmanuel. Sing on, dance on, followers of the Lamb.
The Shaker